Could you recount for us in detail your memory of what happened the night that you and the group of people were discovered on the perimeter of the viewing area when you saw the craft?
I bet John Lair told a different story.
No, it just it was compelling, and I just would be curious to hear. When he in particular, there was one aspect of the story. He said, evidently, when they were vehicles, some 10 unmarked Broncos were.
How many?
He said 5 on each side of the road. 10.
Must have been a different time. No.
He said you either jumped from the car or left the occupants of the car to go out into the desert so that you wouldn't be discovered amongst the people there, that you returned to
That's true. Yeah. Okay. What really happened? We drove out. Well, I mean, John Lair's a nice guy, and I like him, but he does have the tendency to add about 15% color to stories, and if a story goes through them twice, it's 30%. But what happened that night is we took Jean, my wife at the time, and her sister were going to go out and see what we could see, because it was a test flight coming up. And John knew that we were up to something, because we didn't invite him in, and he showed up at the house and said, okay, well, we're going, and come on. We had rented a car, because the only reason we rented a car was because sister-in-law was in from out of town. All I've ever owned usually is sports cars. They seat 2 people, and that's all we had. So we had rented a car, and we all piled into that. And we drove out there. I don't remember what time we got there at, but it got dark. We waited right till dusk to drive up the road. And we got probably about 7 miles in, I think. And we were very careful not to hit the brakes, because we didn't want the lights going on, because we knew by watching up on the road beforehand, we knew there were security guys running around just looking.
Is this the mailbox road?
No, I've never been on a mailbox road. That's the only Broom Road, that big one that goes up there. Well, it's probably on Mailbox Road, but I didn't watch anything from that. We drove in probably about 5 to 7 miles, and we brought all kinds of stuff with us. We brought Geiger counters, we brought a Celestron 10-inch telescope. I brought a 9mm pistol, because I really didn't want to get caught. And we came up there, and as we stopped the car, my sister-in-law was driving. She stepped on the brakes. And so we stopped right there and just waited. We didn't see any reaction. And then somebody opened the door, and the dome light went on. And as soon as that happened, 2 different sets of headlights lit up on either side of us. And we said, that's it, we're dead. So I went in the truck, and I got my pistol, and I went out to the desert.
They were far enough away.
Oh, no, what happened? No, I got that wrong. We hopped in the car and then started really hauling ass back to the exit, thinking if we could get to the road in time, we're out of their jurisdiction, there's no problem. Yeah. So we got about halfway up there, and I think there were 3 vehicles maximum. I stopped, and we had figured we're not getting out of there, because as we're getting close to the top of the road, you can see another vehicle pull in. I said, well, we're trapped. So I got off and ran out to the desert. Now the rest of the story is from the people that were there, because I was out in the desert laying down on the ground. Supposedly what happened was these guys came out. John set up the telescope real fast. And that was the best excuse he could come up with.
That's right.
And the guys came over and said, I think John interrupted him and say, hey, what are you guys trying to do, a drug deal or something? Did we interrupt something? And they kind of just shrugged that off. And John said, well, we're looking at Jupiter. And they said, what are you guys doing out here? They just ignored whatever he had to say, and went on for a while. I don't remember the conversation because I wasn't there. But now it was pitch black. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was a moonless night. And they said, all right, well, just get the hell out of here. They backed off down the road, and they stopped. But we didn't know that, and turned around.
You can see all this happening, right?
No, my head was down. I didn't want my glasses or my white face shining. So
a few hundred yards away.
A few hundred yards away, they had stopped. No one knew this at the time, and I came back, out of the desert, and I'm usually very sarcastic and joke around. And what I said was, when Gene Huff was standing there, I said, Man, we're lucky those guys didn't see the other 50 Delta Force we had out there, or something along those lines, that could have taken him out at any time. And he laughed, it was just, I don't remember the exact content of the joke, but those guys heard that. And they're sitting there watching us, so I guess, now I learned about most of this from the debriefing afterwards when they took me in. So the guys that were there were on top of the truck or Jeep they had, and they went to arms because they thought there were guys standing out there. So they had us all under gunpoint. We didn't know what was going on. And we're sitting there talking about everything that had happened, flying saucers and all that stuff, sitting on the bumper, and we're just looking off down the road. And we see a little green light drop on the ground and roll around, and it was a night vision scope. And someone picks it up and it disappears, and we all said, well, let's get the hell out of here.
What's that? What happened?
It's that one of the guards had dropped a night vision scope, and it rolled on the ground, and we could see the little green image rolling around, and you see it pick up and and disappear. And it was only like from here to the netting over there. That was the distance because it was completely dark.
Wow.
And so we got scared, and as soon as we got in the car, we all agreed, they're right there, and they heard everything. So we took off, and we got to the top of the road, and the Lincoln County Sheriff was there, and that was another major hassle. So he wanted to search the car, we wouldn't let him, and he was in radio contact with the base or these guys out there, and they said, where did the extra guy come from? And, that completely confused him because they had never seen me come up or something like that. They thought I was another guy that walked around, however. Anyway, the big problem was that there was another guy, and I think legally they can only hold you there for an hour, and we were there for like 59 minutes, and he said, okay, go, but he really wanted to search. Well, I got to backtrack a bit. John Lair made the colossal mistake. We were under just minimal suspicion at the time, and he asked for everyone's ID. And in the trunk, we had everything, the Geiger counters and all that stuff, and the people that didn't want to show their ID said, well, we don't have it, we left it at home, and the other ones that did, took it out. And John said, wait, mine's in the trunk, and he opens the trunk, and there's all the stuff laying there, and that's when the cop decided to keep us for a long time. We've always hassled John about that forever. And he said, so you guys are out here with a Geiger counter, a telescope, and all this other hardware, sound equipment, and video stuff, and you're just out walking around? And we all said, yeah, and so that's when he kept us. And that's really what happened that day. And the following day was a work day for me, but I was taken into debriefing and yelled at for a long time.
Never allowed to return to the S4 after that time.
Right. Well, that was kind of a turning point.
Were you fired then? Were you officially fired?
No, I was never fired. See, at the time they were going to pull my clearance before that. So I don't know if that was ever clear. The main reason was for me not progressing any further there was they halted my clearance because at the time my phone was being tapped, and I allowed that. I signed the order to do that, and I'm going through my background, and at the time I didn't tell my wife what was going on until later, and as things progressed. But she was having an affair with somebody on the phone line, and it was her flight instructor that I was paying for flying lessons, by the way. But as this was going on, just like in the astronaut program, not only do you have to have security as far as no connection to foreign governments or things like that, but as far as your family life, it has to be stable because they don't want any loose cannons running around. So this was going on. I had no knowledge of it, and they said, well, what they were going to do is not say anything to me and wait until one way or another the situation resolved itself. Either my wife took off, or came to an end, or whatever. So when I was in debriefing essentially that day, this is when they really started attacking me and hassling me, and that's when they took out the phone transcripts and hey, by the way, Bob, your wife's fucking somebody, and that was the last time I went back. So that was a real fun time.
Rather profound meeting.
Yeah.
In a variety of ways.
So that was.
Must have been just pretty bowled over.
Yeah.
Did you see stuff out at S4 that you chose not to talk about?
Did I see stuff at S4?
Yeah, is there more going on that basically you decided not to?
Yeah, but not that really changes anything. It's the same thing. It's just little technical things that, it's really not worth bringing up.
Yeah, real quick, did you see the paperwork on how they got the disc to start with?
No, it's pure speculation.
What did you have the Geiger counters for, and Do you believe that, are there dangerous levels of radiation in this area because of testing they did previous to now, previous to this point?
I think we wanted to see the background level, and I don't remember. It was just like a staple to take along with you. You know, it's
I
pretty
understand that this area is tests high for radioactivity. The background levels are high in this area. Is that true? To your knowledge?
I don't know. We had the Geiger counter, but before I got to measure the background, I don't know what it was.
Bob, this might be important because Jacques Vallée is such stature, and he's trying to debunk you on the basis of supposedly he's telling your report is only that you saw a DVM and an oscilloscope at S4. And
As far as the equipment there?
Yeah.
This is another thing that's gotten so twisted. Jacques Vallée, who's a UFO writer or something, came to see me in Las Vegas. I don't remember how long ago it was, but after the George Knapp thing, and he came down with some producers from Universal Studios who was going to make a movie about his book Intruders, or not Intruders, that's something else, Dimensions or something. Anyway, they came down with him and they said, well, we want to know what you think of this, and just give us your opinion if this jives. And I looked at the information and he explained it to me, and I said that has nothing to do with the craft that I worked on or any of the technology that I was involved in, period. And Jacques really didn't appreciate that, but they asked for my opinion. So I said, and as far as the conclusions he's drawn, I don't agree with them. I think they're completely wrong, and so on and so forth. So he really didn't like me after that point. So he began to interview me, and he said, well, what did you do here and here? And I went over things, and there's one, and this is on tape. I don't see why he would even make a fuss about it, but he said, well, what kind of equipment did you have to work with? And I said, a wide variety of, of different things. And he said, well, what about your bench? What was on your bench? I said, anything you'd find in a normal tech bench. I said, oscilloscopes, DVMs, things like that. And he said, okay. And then, later I heard through the grapevine that he's out doing a lecture. And Bob Lazar said he's back engineered the flying saucers with an oscilloscope and a DVM. And, it was on tape. And I think a lot of that's, he's really pretty pissed at me for shooting down the movie, but I had no idea that was going to be the effect, or else I would have reserved my opinion,
Right.
But it's just the way it goes.
What was the physical layout of the compound where you worked at like? Could you describe it?
It was long. It was about up on the side of the mountain range there. Where all the hangar doors went alongside, and then there's a long corridor that goes down in back of the hangars. Off that corridor comes several rooms, only 2 or 3 of which I've been in. The medical area, the lab that I work in, and then there's a small little room where I write some briefings and things along those lines. But I haven't been in any of the other rooms or know if there are things behind it or underneath it. So that's all I can help you with on that.
Last night, John Lear said that you really didn't believe that there was anything unusual going on in those space shuttle shots. You thought it was ice particles, these ones they've been claiming are
STS-48.
Oh, yeah. That's not ice, it's dust.
Or dust, whatever.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's...
Have you seen the Hoagland analysis?
Yeah, I've seen the whole thing. I've seen a copy from NASA, and it's, unfortunately, it would be neat if there were flying saucers, but if you see a bright white flash first, that's the positioning thruster firing on the left side of the shuttle.
But the shuttle didn't change, right?
No, it doesn't. It normally doesn't do that. Those are station-keeping thrusters, and that it all depends. If the thruster is firing in the direction of the shuttle, keeping its forward momentum, there'll be no attitude change. That's only if they're firing a pitch rocket will you see a change like that. And the fact that it flew forward means it was firing in the direction of the shuttle. So those little dots and things you see, I firmly believe, because I've seen other things along those lines, are right on the lens. They're not on the horizon. That's why you see a flash, there's a delay, and then particles that are normally floating in space you see dart off like that because of the delay time from that. And until I see something else that leads me to believe that, I know it looked neat, like there was a flash and something came up from the ground, but if you just watch that and think that these are right against the lens, and that bright flash is one of the thrusters firing that you'll probably have a different opinion of it.
But what about the right angle move? It's a 45-degree turn, which means it has to stop.
Right, you're talking about little dust particles that are moving, and then when the thruster fired, it doesn't. There's no mass to them in the reverse
There
direction.
are other particles in the video that do the exact same thing. They're all
Yeah, if you look at the whole video, not just the crop down, there's all kinds of junk floating around, and when that thruster fires, there's about a 1 second delay, and everything goes flying off exactly like you'd expect.
Everything goes flying off and drifting except for one item that accelerates at like 10 times the speed of all the other items in the video.
Yeah, but there's
Have you seen Hoagland's detailed breakdown?
yeah.
Okay, what about when he's talking about the light coming over the horizon of the planet, under the layer, I forget what he calls the layer, and over the ionosphere, but over the horizon?
Yeah, but that doesn't. It still doesn't make sense. It doesn't take into account that something is right on the camera lens.
Did the tape that you listened to, did it have the last transmission from mission control? They have the
I really don't. I don't remember. No, I'm not standing on this like this is absolute fact, but from what I've seen,
Most of the tapes have had that edited off. Last tape said heads up rad gun, which means pay attention and keep your mouth shut.
I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion, and I haven't seen anything to veer me from it. But I always remain open.